Hi, Nathan.
Hello, Deacon.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. All right. I guess I have to.
You know, I went in and I saw Grace set this up, and I was able to, start the meeting, and then Zoom just kind of didn't do a thing for about 5 minutes. I was starting to get a little nervous, and then it just came up. So,
All right. All right.
hello, Randy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Good, good.
Did you all get the PDF of the plan?
Yes, and I've asked one of the members to be prepared to screen share it, and
Good.
he's not on yet, but
Okay,
that's the plan.
all right, that should work.
Well, we're still a minute before 7.
I think it just turned 7, but
Mine too.
the waiting room is open, and people are kind of slowly trickling in. So we've got Jeff, Robert. Linda said she might be late, so I assume we'll see Michael and Stephen pretty soon, and that would be
Yeah, and I think that I asked Michael to be able to screen share the Green Bomb plan. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be making public comment, and then we'll go straight to the Green Bomb plan.
okay. And this is a separate thing from the 212 Wendell Road we just received from Randy.
No, it's the same thing.
The same thing.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It's the same thing. Randy's preparing the plan for Green Bomb.
Oh, I see.
So I'm just here to explain anything if you have any questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, why don't I mean, not everybody's here and we can't,
Michael and Steve are just getting in now. So
okay, well, look, I'll open the meeting. I'll read the governor's announcement.
will you just give me 1 second, Deacon?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I got to do minutes again.
I know, this is terrible.
It really is. It really is. Okay, so, all right, go ahead, Deacon.
Okay, I'll open the meeting with the governor's announcement about the COVID restrictions. Following the governor's restrictions on public meetings, this meeting is being held virtually using zoom.com for remote participation. Public may access it following the instructions on this meeting's agenda posted on the town calendar. If, despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access, the public can request a recording of this meeting by contacting clerk. Great. So there's nobody here but members and Randy. So I think we should go straight to the Green Bomb plan. Do you want to put that on the screen for us, Michael?
Deacon, before you do, I will have a public comment, and I apologize for not having a draft of the minutes, but I've been attempting to get my hands on the recording from the last meeting. I'm trying to see the date here.
The last meeting was 10/4.
Right, the 9/13 meeting, I need the recording for, and I haven't been able to get it. So once I get that, it should be pretty quick to kind of just, make sure I have everything right. I like to go through.
Yeah.
But the 10/4 meeting, I would imagine that Linda Avis Scott will do the minutes on that. The administrative secretary for the select board. Is that, I believe that to be the case?
Probably.
Okay.
Hey, Nathan, can you enable sharing for me?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that now.
Thanks.
I just made you a co-host, Michael. You should be able to share.
Cool. Okay, you guys see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I can shrink it a little bit if we need to. Should I make it bigger or smaller?
It looks good to me. You guys do what you need to do, but I can see it fine. Now you're getting to, there you go, right there. That's about full size for me.
Yeah. Okay. So, so do you want to say what the plan accomplishes, Randy?
Sure. So my name's Randy Iser. I'm from Harold Eaton Associates in Hadley. This property is owned by Historical Enterprises LLC, principal being Joel Greenbaum. This property's been in the Greenbaum family for quite some time. They've decided that they want to sell it. So there is approximately 31 acres in the whole parcel. And I believe right now he's got somebody interested in the house lot, which is 375 feet of frontage, 3.0570 acres. Both those requirements, I believe, satisfy your zoning for this area. And the remaining lot is 28 acres and to be dealt with in the future, as far as I know. There's an interesting thing on this plan that I will make you guys aware of. In the middle of the 28-acre lot, if you look down at the bottom, you'll see former location of highway. So Wendell Road used to be in where it says former location, and it got relocated to where it is today. And there's a little triangle of land in there that is owned by Peter Geese, who owns land across the road. Back before they moved the road, his property abutted the old road. So what happens in this situation is that the Greenbaum property owns to the center of the old road, and Geese owns to the center of the old road. Plus he had a little bit of land left over anyhow. So in essence, Geese has a control of that triangle of land. He can't do anything with it. It's not big enough to build on, but he does own it. So just in case that comes up in the future, you guys will have that knowledge.
Can I ask a-
Anybody tell me what that frontage is of the property he owns, of that little triangle?
Of Geese,
Yeah,
it
along
is.
Wendell Road.
Yeah, it's not on there because we weren't surveying that. I mean, I can certainly
Just a
get it
guesstimate.
for you, but it's
Yeah.
not on this plan.
So just a curiosity about that too. So it looks like there's, on the right-hand side of the 28 acres, it says 342 feet of frontage. And then on the left hand, it says 394. So is that from this point to this point?
Next one. So go from that first point, yeah, from there to
To
there.
Got
Yeah.
it.
342.
Correct.
And then the 394 is from this point to
Keep going. Right there.
that one. So the mystery is the triangle part, but someone
Yeah.
can build going, there's two lot frontages basically. With
Yes.
those two, okay.
All right.
Yes. And if Mr. Greenbaum can acquire the title to that land that Geese owns, that would get him some more frontage.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing over 600 foot of frontage, just eyeballing it.
It's going to be close. There's 285, 206. So I don't think it'll make it. Might be 500, but I don't think it'll be 600.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Randy, the reason for the added acreage and added frontage here is that this house is a two-family house. Is that correct?
I believe so, but I'm not positive. A lot had to do with the the lay of the land, how the yard was being used. You'll see that there's a stone wall at the back of the lot that is being used as a boundary line. And there's also a stone wall to the right that doesn't extend out to the road, but we kind of extended it out. So, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the two-family status there.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because the acreage and the frontage are pretty much exactly what you have to have for a two-family dwelling. And as I understand it, that is a two-family dwelling.
Okay, well,
So that's why I figured it was an oversized lot. So that makes it comply.
well, I hope for their sake, if it is a two-family, that he did the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a zoning question, not really a A&R type question, but I mean, if you didn't have that, I would I would wonder about it, because I've always heard that is a two-family. But-
Sometimes I don't get all the information I need when I do a
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah. So they must have told you, we need 375 on the road and we need over 130,000 square feet.
Well, that, yeah, they did dictate what they wanted the lot to look like, so.
Okay.
Right, so. Does anybody have more questions?
So we're just approving this 3.0570 acres, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, you're approving both because they're showing two lots. So by approving lot one, you're also approving the remaining lot
I
area.
understand. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so Deacon, how are we pricing this?
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, it seems like this property is winding up with two buildable parcels.
I don't know how you guys structure your fees, but that makes sense to me. You definitely have two lots here that are one with a house on it. Obviously, that's a building lot, and the other one is buildable. So
So I guess the question is whether we bill for two buildable lots or we bill for an increase of one.
Well, it seems like we're creating two buildable lots.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they can subdivide later if they wanted to, but right now we're creating two out of one.
That's my take too.
Yeah, we've done other of these where it's a number of lots created, but they're not buildable. So we don't charge for the not buildable ones, but we have
Yeah.
two buildable ones here, so we should charge for two.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, yeah. So are we ready? Are we ready for a motion to approve? Does anybody want to say anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve this plan showing lot one with the area and frontage that it has, and then the remaining lot both being buildable.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll move that we approve it.
Okay.
Should we mention the owner's name in the motion?
Greenbaum.
Is that the technical owner or is it a Historical Enterprises LLC? Randy?
yeah, the owner is Historical Enterprises LLC. That's whose name title is in. So that's probably more appropriate.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay.
So whoever's taking the minutes, just add into the motion that owned by Historical Enterprises LLC.
Um,
Okay, any more discussion? I'll call the roll. Not everybody's showing on my screen right now, so I'll start with the ones I can see. Jeff,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
um, oh, Nathan,
aye.
Linda,
I came in late and did not hear the whole plan, so I will
Okay.
abstain.
we got the votes. You can abstain. And I'm an aye.
So I just had a quick question for Randy. The triangle that you show is the rectilinear in, it has one that goes this way, one that goes this way, and it comes to a point. Was that the actual road layout? Are there bounds out there that you located to determine that alignment, or
Yes.
because the rest of the road is curvilinear?
Yeah, so the old layouts were typically straight lines. The newer ones tend to have curves and tangents. But if you, I don't know how well you can see the plan, Jeff, but we found a highway bound at each point of that old highway layout where the triangle is. You'll see black squares at each end of the dashed line on the green bomb side of the road. So that was the old layout. So
Okay.
yes, to answer your question, yes, we did find bounds for the old layout.
And the bounds to the south and the north where it connects to the existing road today, are those actual bounds as well that you found?
Some are there, yes. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
certainly.
Okay, so, so I guess the way we should leave, what I'd suggest we leave it is that I can go to town hall tomorrow morning and sign by myself on behalf of the board and return the papers to the town clerk. Jeff can pick the plans up from the town clerk after that and give the town clerk $140.
Okay, $140 fee.
Yeah.
And when, can you call me or something, Deacon, or email me and let me know when it's been signed?
Sure. My plan would be to go in around 10 o'clock, which is when the town clerk arrives and just do it then.
All right, so afternoon time tomorrow.
It should be okay. Yeah.
Okay, and what time does the clerk close tomorrow? Do you know?
The clerk works 10 to 1 and 3 to 5.
Okay, 10 to 1, 3 to 5. All right, that's what I need. I'll tell my client and you'll get your money and he'll get his plan.
It's good. It's a miracle.
Isn't it though? All right, that's it for me, I guess.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Good
Okay,
night.
Thanks, have a good night.
You
okay,
too.
Great. Well, that went well. So let's move on to the to Stacy Terrio's frontage question.
I can address that.
Good.
Among others, I guess. I visited that, and it's on the corner between Shore, which is a kind of a major lake road on the east side. It's the counterpart of Lake Drive on the west side, and then Pine, which branches off and goes out into a peninsula or something in the lake. And there we go. Yeah, it looks like that might be Pine heading off to the
This
left
is-
there.
Yeah, this is fine. This is shore.
Okay. And I found I guess there's 40 feet of frontage on shore and then more frontage on Pine. I guess all of that would be frontage on Pine. And the question was, does that frontage actually exist? Do the roads actually exist? And is it adequate in the eyes of the planning board? Because you need 50 feet of frontage for an undersized lot like that to make it grandfathered for a single family dwelling. And I found it to be fairly typical of lake roads. In fact, I saw that there had been some recent drainage improvements made on Pine. Penny Jakes told me the Concom kind of supervised that. So on both sides of Pine running down there have been drainage improvements, some hardening of the ditches and some plunge pools down there. Maybe there's another photograph that shows that.
Does anybody have,
Yeah,
have a plan view, you know, a map?
we had one last time.
Yeah, I think the applicant probably showed it to us.
She did.
Right. But anyway,
I think I got one from there we go. That's
Okay.
what this is on Pine looking up.
yeah, so you can see on both, it's a little hard to see, but it's real plain when you're out there that there've been drainage and culvert improvements on both sides.
Uh-huh.
And there are other houses served by Pine. So this would certainly not be the only one because there's others down there. So in my estimation, for the lake anyway, this certainly meets the prevailing standard of roads and frontage for the lake.
And which side of Pine is the building lot?
The left, as you're looking at it, right in that picture.
Yeah, where the trees are.
Yeah,
So the lot's, it's lot's undersized, but it's well over 5,000 square feet, which it needs to be under state law to be grandfathered. I guess it's 0.18 acres, which is larger than 5,000 square feet.
Yeah. I went there today. I mean, I would agree, Jeff. I mean, the roads seem fine and Pine definitely continues on. I think there's like 3 houses farther down. You know, it's definitely in use. I mean, it struck me, especially like on I mean, this is not a road question, it's just a general comment, but to the front, closer to us in this picture and to the left, is where the water starts. There's a little like inlet coming in.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a teeny lot butting up right against the water. It just seems like I don't know what you would put on that house. I mean, on that lot, building.
Michael, are you talking about to the right of this picture is where the little inlet is?
No, to the left.
The left, because I was down there. I mean, we're looking back at Shore Road, right?
Correct, yeah. So I think I did take a video, but let's see if I got one. There you go.
Okay.
So it's like, the road is right here where the leaves are going up.
Yeah.
That's Pine. So, I mean, it seemed like the question at hand was, are the roads adequate? And they are. So I don't know if this is a Concom question, but boy, oh boy, building,
Yep.
it's such a small lot and it backs right onto the water.
Yeah, but so they use a tight tank.
Well, we only have one determination to make, and that's the adequacy of the roads. And that's what she's looking for. And I guess the building inspector is looking for that too. But then after that, and I spoke to Donna McNichol today, as I had to talk to her about another planning board matter that we might get to later. But I asked her about this lot, and it is grandfathered with respect to area and with respect to frontage. It has less in both categories, but the rest of the zoning applies, and all the setbacks apply, and the height limit of 28 feet applies. So, and also in our zoning, when you have a corner lot, there's a specific provision that says a corner lot will have 2 front yard setbacks and 2 side yard setbacks and no rear setback. So any house that's built in there is gonna have to comply with those setbacks. It's gonna have to be 25 feet from pine and 25 feet from shore. So that's gonna dictate the placement of the house and maybe the size of the house, because then you also have setbacks from the other two lines at the rear.
That puts it pretty close to the water.
And the neighbor, because I don't, Jeff, do you remember? Well, I guess you guys went, but there's a fence with the neighbor and then there's a
Yep.
trailer in the lot.
Yep.
I mean, since the road footage is only 40 feet. I mean, if you're set back 25 feet, you have a 15-foot remainder. It's not that much room.
Well, that's what they have to work with.
Yeah.
And, they could apply for a zoning variance from the zoning board of appeals. If they had a hardship, they could make that case, but that's really what the building inspector needs to tell them, is that they have to keep those setbacks in mind when they build. So it's not going to be a McMansion.
I can't remember the numbers, but isn't there also a setback from the water?
There's a 25-foot setback from the high water mark of Lake Wyola,
Yeah, yeah.
which I believe is that little inlet. That's part of the lake in the rear. So that will increase that setback to 25 feet. And you got 20 or 25 from pine and shore, and then you've got 15 from the neighbor.
Yeah, this is the corner looking into the lot. So
Yeah.
shore is on the right and pine's on the left.
Yeah. So really they have to just draw those lines, and what they have to work with is within those confines.
Pretty small.
Yeah.
Tent size, I'd say.
Well, she referred to it as a studio apartment, studio living space. So we'll see how she interprets that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she has zoning to worry about with the building inspector, the setbacks and the height. She's got the Board of Health for well and septic. She's got the Conservation Commission for the bank of the lake. So, I mean, she's definitely not done.
Yeah. So what you're saying in not so many words is we're the least of her problems.
Yeah.
So shall we talk about how to proceed with this? I mean, I assume we're probably going to have to produce a letter for the building inspector.
Yeah, I would volunteer to write that letter because I think that some of the concerns that, the other concerns should probably be mentioned, just to go on record as mentioning them. But also to distinguish that the road judgments that we're making here are situational. They're, it's based on the prevailing types of roads in the area around the lake, which may not be equally applicable everywhere in Shutesbury. If you came upon a pine drive somewhere else, I don't know, it might not. I'd like to write it in such a way that it's not generalizable all over town, that it's just unique to this setting. So
That makes sense.
I volunteer to write the letter.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to just make a motion about the roads? Because I think we should vote on the road status so that we've agreed on that, and then you can write the letter with the other stuff.
Yeah, oh boy, there's specific language that
Here,
there's specific language that I don't have right in front of me.
how's this? This one?
Yes,
This C, right?
yeah, it's the third one. Okay, so I move that in this case, for this applicant, whose name is something.
Tracy, Tara, this one.
Stacy Terrio.
For Tracy Terrio, that the planning board finds that Pine and Shore Drives were ways in legal and physical existence when the subdivision control law became effective in Shutesbury in April 1973, which have sufficient width, suitable grades, and adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic in relation to the proposed use of the land abutting the blah, blah, blah.
I'll second it.
Yeah, so Nathan, that motion just finishes that text there.
Yeah.
Want me to send that to you,
Is
Nathan?
this, yeah, would you?
Yeah, it's in the definitions, but I'll just send it to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So you're all right, Nathan?
Yeah.
Okay, so any more discussion on this? I'll call the roll. Jeff,
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that's good. Well, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so I'll probably look to you, Deacon, for the contact information for the applicant. And we should also send a copy to the building inspector. So I'll get that stuff from you.
Okay, yeah, that may require me emailing her first, because I don't think, I didn't start with her mail address.
Okay.
I started with her email.
Will the letter be, was the motion to mail it to her or to her and the building inspector?
The motion was just to write a letter, and I don't think we have to include who it's going to. I'll probably send one to the Concom and the Board of Health as well, so everybody knows what's going on.
Okay.
Great. Well, my suggestion is that we put any further discussion of the next item, the minutes, off until after we meet with the ZBA. So I think we should just get started on that. I mean, that's our main event anyway. So
And same for associate members, Deacon?
yeah, 'cause
Okay.
I mean, we agreed on 7:30. I think we should do that. And
Oh, no, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify since you didn't mention. it.
Deacon, I'm not sure my other member is here yet. Is he here? Do you know if
well, Herb
Herb
Gilmore is here.
Gilmore? Is Herb's here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I just don't see you. Okay. Because Herb has volunteered to take the minutes unless you already have a minute taker. Is there?
We're taking minutes and we will submit minutes.
Okay.
If you're gonna call are you gonna call the ZBA to order?
Well, I mean, see, I've always thought these were joint meetings, so
Well, I think, yeah, I think Donna has advised us that in these joint meetings that we have with the select board, each committee is called to order and the governor's announcement is read for both. I mean, we've already read it.
So I'm okay if we just continue this meeting and get to this agenda item.
Or no, Chuck, you just have to call yourselves to order so you can do business.
Oh, okay, all right, then, because last time we had a joint meeting, but I didn't call it to order. Okay, so I will then call this meeting to order. I noticed that it's 7:33 and the meeting is set for 7:30. And this is the Town of Shutesbury Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, and on the agenda, I called it a virtual Zoom joint meeting with the Town of Shutesbury Planning Board for today's date, with an agenda that I mailed at least to Deacon and to my ZBA members. The first item on the agenda is the continued discussion of an action plan with the planning board for a recommendation for zoning bylaw changes relative to the Lake Wyola district. And this is meeting is virtual pursuant to Judge Charlie Baker's orders and various orders as amended, primarily due to the COVID pandemic that we have been experiencing since March of 2020. And I don't know if that's adequate or not. I'm not used to reading that part of it.
Chuck, you're tipping your hand that you're a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, because lawyers just rely on assistance. You're right. and unfortunately, we don't have assistants here right now. So anyway, the meeting's called to order. I can make some comments, but because I just to steer the meeting a little bit, if you want me to, or unless you want to speak, Deacon, or.
No, no, you're much more knowledgeable at this than I am. I'd love it if you spoke now.
All right, well, here's what I think, because, you know, I'm trying to go back to the discussions that that the Zoning Board of Appeals had amongst themselves about what we were trying to accomplish with the planning board. And I'd like to go back to that plan that we all agreed together, that is the full Zoning Board of Appeals. And the idea really, there's a two-tiered idea, maybe three-tiered. One is that the planning board and the zoning board together take a walk, and I would recommend that the leader of that walk should be Jeff Lacy. And the reason I say that is because Jeff Lacy is the liaison between these two boards, the official liaison, and a member of both of our boards. So perhaps Jeff Lacy, perhaps consulting with the planning board and the zoning board, could determine what that walk is. But I think Jeff should lead the walk and lead all of us for a walk around Lake Wyola. And as I said in the last meeting, I think that there may be different, there aren't any now, but we may come to a conclusion that there are different districts at Lake Wyola, District A, B, C, and D, perhaps. I mean, maybe we won't come to that conclusion, but we may come to that conclusion. But and it's been suggested that we should not treat the entire lake as one district. I mean, it is clearly one district right now, but we should not treat it as such, because there may be different topography and hills, and, you know, there may be people across the street or not, or there may be three tiers or not. And so the idea is to have this walk. And my suggestion is that this walk does not occur at any time between December the 21st and say the first half of March, that we try to do it before December 21st or after March. But I think before is better if we want to put anything on the agenda for town meeting. And then after that walk, to see whether or not either the boards independently or together can come to some ideas about, maybe the ideas will be no changes at all, we just continue, or there may be some ideas for tweaks in the zoning bylaw relevant to the situation around the lake. But if we do come to any consensus and we do desire to go forward to the town meeting, I think at that point, when we might want to have a more full-blown meeting with the residents, perhaps the association or a representative sample of residents who are concerned with this issue, for them to weigh in. In fact, I think that they should weigh in even while we're going through the process starting now. I mean, they have been weighing in for the last several weeks, you know, whether there should be an increase or not in the height around immediately abutting the lake or across the street, yes or no. So I think that it's important that the residents at the lake weigh in too, so that if we, as joint boards, want to make a joint recommendation to town meeting, we do so with the knowledge of support or not support, or half support or not, of the residents. And I think the residents should be consulted because of Lake Wyola, because they're most affected. So that's my idea. And if that idea makes any sense, then what I'd rather do now is schedule the meeting, maybe schedule a walk between now and before December 21st. And obviously don't think it's a good idea to be hiking around the lake in the freezing cold in the winter, especially in the winter. So I just picked December 21st only because it's the first day of winter, you know. So that's my thought.
If I could jump in, I mean, I'm okay with talking about a date, but it seems like I'd like to start talking about the concept, because, you know, I think it's a debatable concept whether we want to create, separate categories at the lake. You know, even if we go and then do a visual tour, at least having the conversation conceptually seems like a good idea. I mean,
Okay. I just can't have the conversations because although, you know, I've been living here for 40 years and I have been to the lake many times, I cannot claim that I have sufficient knowledge of the complete topography around the lake that may speak to this issue. And that's the only reason I suggest that.
Yeah.
And,
well,
and
I'll just tell you, I mean, I'm hesitant to go down that road just, you know, because many parts of town. So you think about January Hills. January Hills right now is got the same zoning requirements as the rest of town. Lake Wyola is really the only pullout. And so, you know, and how January Hills feels is really different than Town Center or Pelham, you know, Pelham Hill or West Pelham. And so it seems sort of a dangerous precedent to say, we're going to start looking at sub parts of Shutesbury, which is not a very big place to begin with. And both for manageability, but also I think from a uniformity, I don't know, quite equity, but you know, there's a point at which not everybody's unique. So I'd see it somewhat problematic.
fair enough.
Yeah.
It's just an idea. Just an idea. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff,
So that the planning board, we on the zoning board know all about where this came from, painfully so. But this stems from cases that we get at the zoning board. The planning board never hears about these cases. We wrote the zoning that the zoning board follows, but we don't get these cases. And the three that I recall in the last few years, recent cases, have all involved lakefront homes seeking to expand, to add, to increase their height, to do what they can under their rights as lawfully non-conforming structures. And there's a whole body of law around that in state law and pretty much mimicked in our zoning bylaw that the zoning board has to follow. And in all three of those cases that I can recall, there have been applicants who want to do things. They want a larger home, often a year-round home. They want it higher, with say going from a 1-story to a 2-story or a 1.5 stories to a full 2-story, going up as close to the 28 feet as they can. And then there are, in all cases, at least one abutter or neighbor or somebody behind them that had been looking at the lake, sort of over or on the side of the houses proposed to be enlarged. And these people are aggrieved. So they kind of testify against, and then the ZBA tries to work things out and arrive at some type of compromise. And in the first two cases, we had applicants that were kind of willing to work with us. And we got sort of an acceptable solution. In the third case, which just happened last year, it didn't work out that way. And it divided the zoning board, and it was difficult. And there were a number of abutters, people across the street that were relying on the view through, who testified against. The applicant was unwilling to really change the plans much. And that's sort of why we're here, is, that kind of painful case, which always seems to pit neighbors against one another at the lake. Because the whole point of the lake is, if you're not right on it, at least you have a view of it. And when that view is diminished, people are aggrieved. And so that's why we're looking for some other possible ways of dealing with these cases. And Chuck's idea, I guess, is to let people in the back go up higher. I'm more of the opinion that homes right on the water should probably be constrained from enlarging very much. So there's a bit of a difference of opinion on the zoning board, but we all agree it's an issue.
It seems like,
I'm not stuck in my opinion, because I really want to know what the residents think too. I want to be informed about my opinion.
well, I'm always for listening to residents, but it's worth pointing out that, depending on what question gets asked and how the issue gets framed, I mean, there's self-interest in who's speaking up, and I think there's an advantage sort of stepping back and thinking about the whole town level approach, because again, it gets back to this is unique. I think the one thing I don't have the background that you guys do, but I think the other thing to just throw in that's different is that Lake Wyola, for the most part, is older, smaller homes that are being renovated with a movement towards getting bigger and year round, whereas most every other house in town is usually probably built as a year round house to begin with. So that dynamic is in play. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I
I
think it's generally correct.
I think it's worth doing the site visit that Chuck's suggesting. We go in with our eyes open, knowing that we don't want to set any precedent that is going to cause us all to go down a rabbit hole. And I mean that rabbit hole for the planning board as well as ZBA. Well, let's just say that ZBA is already down a rabbit hole. We don't follow them.
Well,
But I do think it's a good idea to do what Chuck's suggesting. At least we can see the lay of the land and see if there are little things we can tweak that don't cause, us don't set dangerous precedents.
Well,
Aside
yeah, Herb Gilmore here. The one issue I still have is within the actual bylaws themselves. The way it's written now, it seems like if you're a non-conforming lot, that you are really limited to building nothing larger than what you have right now by right. Do I understand that correctly? If we made the
Unless
statements that the way it's written.
Unless it's more than 2 acres, then you might be able to. But yeah, the way it's written now, I think that's generally accurate without a special permit. Yeah.
Right.
Herb, I think there are exceptions to that. If, there's all these little pictures in the zoning bylaw that kind of try to explain what you can do by right and what you can do by special permit. I think if what you're enlarging is entirely within the setbacks, you can do it by right.
Except for the height issue.
Well,
because the height issue, as it stands now, says it can be no higher than the structure that is presently there.
yeah, that, I thought there was an exception to that.
I didn't find it. I didn't find it.
Yeah, I'll have to reacquaint myself.
we discussed it last time.
Yeah, and I think that was, there was the whole thing of, that seems to be what I recall, is that, you were limited to the existing height of the structure if you were to be able to proceed by right. And otherwise,
Right. If you want to go above the existing height, even though you don't go out at all on the sides or on the rear or on the front, if if you want to go up on the height, even a foot, still need a special permit, the way it's presently written. And that's my beef with it. I don't think it should be that way, but, I think it dangerously results in an unconstitutional application of the bylaw. In other words, as I said before, a bylaw could clearly be constitutional on its face. I think this one is, but it could also be unconstitutional as applied. And if it deprives an established right, and I think we have established rights in multiple ways, and one of them is the 28 feet height, in my opinion, that the town has adopted at a town meeting, is an established right. And when I think of setbacks, whether they're side setbacks or a rear setback or a lake setback, a front setback or a lake setback, when I think of the height, I think of another setback, except that setback's up in the air. So I think if you're entirely within the setbacks, but I add the height to that, you should be able to do it as a matter of right. Now, if you go out on the sides, then I don't think you should be able to do it as a matter of right, on a non-conforming lot that's not 2 acres, that's less than 2 acres. Then I don't think you should be able to do it as a matter of right. I think you should have a special permit. And that's what we want to kind of look at, and because it's that part of the bylaw we want to tweak, maybe or maybe not. Maybe we don't want to tweak it. Maybe
Jeff found something.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If we all go to our bylaws, which I'm sure we all have right in front of us.
Is it page? What's the page, Jeff? Is it 21? 21, right?
It's 28 in mine, and
Well,
it's
that's an older, 21 in mine.
What's the section? What's the section?
Section 6.1-3D.
Yeah.
NC.
It's the last illustration.
Right.
And what that does provide is what I thought it did, is an alteration that increases the overall height, but does not encroach upon any setback. So it says, this example proposes to add a second floor to the portion of the structure that does not encroach upon any setbacks. This alteration is permitted by right. So if, maybe you have a house that encroaches on the setbacks, but what you're proposing to raise the height of is in the middle of that, kind of.
But Jeff, then I
in the
think
center.
if that's the case, and I agree that that's the case, that's not what it says in the text. If we could change the wording in the text to state, that the height will encroach no more than the existing bylaw. The way it is right now, you're limiting the height to the previous bylaw or whatever rule there was that allowed that house to only be 20 feet high. Somebody must have said that, maybe back, how many years ago? I don't know how far back the board goes, but it looks like that number keeps increasing, and we're saying that in that illustration that you pointed to, but it doesn't say that in the text.
Yeah, so I think you may have found an inconsistency.
Excuse me?
You may have found an inconsistency that bears resolving.
What would the
Yeah, that's
inconsistency
exactly
be?
why we're here. That's why we're here.
Yes, but
I'm lost with what the inconsistency is.
Well, there's an inconsistency, there may be an inconsistency between 6.1-3D1 and the
1B, yeah.
and 6.1-3D2 last illustration.
But Jeff, can I ask you, and well, I guess both Herb and Jeff, the way I just heard this is with the picture. So the picture says that if they do not encroach, you can go up to the legal height. But I think the way I'm reading the text, so D1, it's about if they if there is encroachment.
D1B, yeah.
So if there's, the picture is about no encroachment and the text is about encroachment. So they're talking about different things. So I don't think there's.
But it's all
any
about height.
consistency.
But it's all about
Oh,
height.
Yeah, but in one
One is
scenario, you're encroaching on the setbacks and the picture is you're not encroaching on the setbacks. So they're different
No,
situations.
no. The text, if you read it, really
Yeah.
implies that as long as the setbacks, we're not gonna talk about height now,
I know.
are with it, are no greater than they were previously. No greater than they were previously. That the same does not hold true for height.
That's exactly right, because in this
So in other words,
example,
we're talking about no encroachment. And that diagram also shows no further, oh, it does. I take it back. It shows further encroachment. So you're right. That's even more inconsistent, right? Or is it only consistent with the fact that you can make it higher if you make it wider?
Right.
I don't know.
I think the main point is if we're suggesting edits, there's two parts. One is even if we didn't change anything, we should change the language to make it clear because we can't
Yes.
expect someone to have this kind of conversation when they're
Yes.
planning a house. So we can do
Yes.
that. And secondarily, we can figure out, do we want to change something? I mean,
yes,
like the substance, there's a substantive change and there's the language change. Clarity we should change for, I believe. This is a guidebook, so we should be able to
Yes.
provide good guidance. Whether we want to change the substance is another question.
Herb,
Michael, just so you know, Michael, in the controversial case, and the only one that's been so divisive and controversial in my 26 years on this board, there was no, as to the structure that presently existed, there was no attempt at all to go out on the sides in any way, shape, or form. There was no attempt at all to go out on the front either. The going out on the back was also not problematic because it was still within the setback. So the only really change that they were proposing, which we ultimately gave them after extreme controversy, but the only change that they were proposing is to raise the height by approximately 5 feet, and still though a couple of feet below the 28 feet, so and I thought that should have been as a matter of right, in my opinion, because of this language and the diagram, and because of the original diagrams in the beginning, the original chart in the beginning, and frankly, because of the Constitution, and which I think trumps everything. You can't have a bylaw that's unconstitutional, whether it's on its face or as applied. You can't.
It's not prohibited though.
Can I,
Nathan.
yes, sorry.
What?
I don't
Who is
believe that
that?
there's hi, this is Nathan. I don't believe that there is a contradiction between the picture and the text of the 6D
I
1C.
think you're right.
Because it says that it doesn't decrease the distance, the height is the height of the roof line, or sorry, to just go back to D1, right? The
Yeah,
proposed alterations
just the
comply,
first part of that sentence.
Yeah,
comply with setback requirements, or if they do not comply, the proposed changes that encroach upon setbacks satisfy the following conditions. They don't decrease the distance, so on and so forth, right? So this thing that where you're saying you can't go higher than you already are is only imposed if you are not complying with the setback requirements.
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's
I agree with
that's
you.
what I say. Yeah, I think that's right.
I agree, because the last illustration and D1, the first phrase, talk about the same thing. Proposed alterations comply with the setbacks. And then that makes them by right in both cases. And then the rest of it, after the comma, or if they do not, that's all if they don't comply with the setbacks.
Right. So
It seems like, just not to get editing into it, but if you're looking at D1, right? You say the proposed alterations comply with the setbacks. If you just make that a statement and say what it is, and then you do a separate thing, which is 2, that if they don't comply, then it makes it really clear. Having those be two phrases in one sentence is the confusing part.
That would be an improvement right there, for sure, I agree. But I still think that we have to look at this and decide what we want ultimately.
Yeah, well, I want to just throw out an idea. I mean, it seems like the way it's been approached so far is in set numbers, so the 28 feet or what it is this now. Have you guys ever explored the idea of the percentage increase? So if a house is 15 feet and you're adding 5 feet, that's a substantial, percentage. Whereas if you're 26 and you want to add another foot, that's not as substantial.
Yeah, there are bylaws that actually do that. In fact, the case cited by the lawyer who appeared was just that kind of a bylaw, and where they had gross square footage and how much the gross square footage went out. But the Supreme Court has been pretty interesting lately. So, for example, there have been cases where the zoning board denied the applicant from going out 1.5 feet, and the 1.5 feet on each side was clearly infringing on the setbacks as the bylaws stated, but notwithstanding that it was a clear infringement. And to at least 2 cases, the Supreme Judicial Court found that the denial of the Zoning Board of Appeals was arbitrary and capricious and voided it. And that was clearly, both those cases were clearly in violation of the zoning bylaws, and the Supreme Court said it's arbitrary and capricious, and we're not going to enforce it. And the case that the lawyers cited was a case of a condominium. So these condominiums are attached to each other, and the idea was to go up. And so when the condominium went up, several feet, certainly it was blocking views of the other condominiums across the street. And Supreme Court said he has a constitutional right. And in fact, they started criticizing 2-acre zoning as and I think that's where they're going to go ultimately. They started criticizing 2-acre zoning as encouraging urban sprawl, is anti-environment, is a situation where it discourages those from slower classes from moving in, and it encourages elite towns, and all this language is in there. So and you got a Supreme Judicial Court now that's pretty much appointed by Charlie Baker and the gang, and I think they're going to go in a different direction. And I think what you're going to see is lawsuits filed against cities and towns. You're already seeing them, but lawsuits, and these lawsuits expose members of the board to personal liability. And that's what the problem is in these cases. You can get sued individually, and if it's found to be arbitrary and capricious, you could get sued for all kinds of damages, including punitive damages. These are federal court cases under the Federal Civil Rights Code. The same kinds of cases that you would bring in police misconduct cases. It's a violation of constitutional rights. And if the person acts in an arbitrary and capricious manner, an intentional manner, or in a reckless manner, and doesn't keep focused on constitutional rights, just focuses on bylaws, even state statutes could be voided, and they have been voided by Supreme Courts. And there's criticism by this Supreme Court and by these appeals courts of even our own state statutes that enable all of these bylaws. So I'm just suggesting that the writing is on the wall here. I'm going to be leaving myself soon after, in the next fiscal year, but I don't want to be around and get sued personally here. And I think others feel the same way. So we got to clean this up.
I don't know how you can be sued personally if you're, like nonprofits have, protections, and the town has protections we're town employees.
Doesn't matter. I have sued dozens and dozens and dozens of cities and towns in this state, and I've been successful in over 90% of them. They are personal liability cases. That's what they are. Now, zoning boards usually don't get hit with these cases, but they do. There are many cases against individual members of zoning boards and planning boards that get hit with these cases, not only under the state civil right, the federal civil rights statute, but we even have a state civil rights statute, Mass General Laws, Chapter 12, Section 11, H and I. And most of those cases arise out of zoning cases where, where abutters are complaining. They even sue the abutters, and with a conspiracy charge against the abutters and the zoning board trying to stop someone's constitutional rights. And, you could be sued.
No, listen, anytime you're on a zoning board of appeals, you're on a planning board, and you're doing discretionary permits, any kind of permits really that deal with land use and land use rights, there's a potential that your decisions will be appealed. I've been sued personally a number of times in my capacities with government over the last 33 years. I haven't spent a penny to defend myself, and none of them have gone anywhere at all.
Yeah. But there are people who specialize in these cases.
They've lost every single time.
Well,
so
I have won 90% of the time, and I've sued over 400 people. So,
yeah, but Chuck, you're a civil rights lawyer. Chuck, you're a civil rights lawyer.
Well, that's what these are. I'm trying to suggest that that's what these are. These are civil rights cases. No. And the language of the Supreme Judicial Court is talking about it in those terms.
But I think
starting to.
Well, I think there's two things.
That's all I'm saying.
I guess I would say two things. One is, no matter, if zoning's prefaced on regulations, that there's within the public realm, you can make rules that people have to abide by. And inevitably in society, if you draw a line, someone's going to object to the line, whatever it is, no matter where it is. And so that's just part of the deal, that someone's going to say you're infringing. Look at all, you could say, look at guns, you could look at abortion, all those things. People are saying vaccines are infringing. It doesn't matter what the issue is. People will interpret infringement. So, ultimately, I think that you either say it's a free-for-all and everyone does everything, but if you don't do that, then you have to create a codify a system. And
going to the land court to overturn a zoning board decision is very different than going, or even state superior court, if you're just doing judicial review, is very different than a civil rights lawsuit where they're suing people individually. That's very, very different. There are lots of immunities for discretionary functions that we all play on zoning boards and on planning boards. Most of the stuff we do on zoning boards and on planning boards, we have immunities. We can't even be sued for negligence. We have tremendous immunities. But when it comes to a deprivation of property and an unconstitutional application of a bylaw, you could be sued individually. It's not to say the town won't indemnify you. The state statute allows the town to indemnify you for $1 million, but these cases usually cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend. It's not a place you want to be. And I'm just, I'm just telling you, the writing's on the wall in these cases, and we got to clean up the language in this book. I discussed this with town council. We could bring her in too. Her and I don't disagree about this, so it's something to think about. Or we can get outside counsel in, and they can talk about civil rights cases against individual zoning board members and planning board members when they apply land use laws. And it exists. That's all I'm saying. So the language needs to be cleaned up one way or another, as you identified, Michael. And I think it's a good idea. But it's a big difference between negligence and discretionary functions. That's not what I'm talking about. Not what I'm talking about.
So what would the process be? What would the process be to make any changes to the language, whether it's substantive or not? There must be some process.
Yeah. If we agree, we make a joint presentation to the town meeting, and hopefully with the joint presentation of the town meeting, it passes town meeting and the language is changed. As simple as that. That's the process. Town meeting changes these things. Otherwise, the only other way it changes is the Supreme Court saying it's void and it's unconstitutional. Now pay money damages.
So can we do this as a zoning board? Can we make the recommendations that we want to make these changes, since it looks like the D portion of this is not taken verbatim out of any state books? I know that C is, but I don't think D is.
Yeah,
And, you
but
know,
I
if
think
we
that,
internally could work on the wording of that,
well,
would that be
I think the
adequate to be
planning
brought, or
board-
do there have to be several boards involved in making that change?
No, but I just think the planning board's a primary function of a planning board is to draft these kinds of bylaws. So I'm not comfortable bringing any bylaw before a town meeting, no matter how strongly I feel about it, with respect to zoning, without the planning board. I don't think it's good practice either. I think the zoning board certainly could do that, and an individual citizen can do that. But I just don't think it's good practice. I think we should be thinking about these things together. And so I would, like I said, I have a disagreement about the accessory apartments. I'm not going to go forward with that without the blessings of the planning board. I just wouldn't do it. Doesn't make sense. There's no reason to be
Nathan,
divisive. That's, it's unnecessarily divisive, and I don't think we should do it.
Chuck,
Yeah.
in your caution about civil rights lawsuits, you mentioned there were a couple of cases you're aware
many
of that gave you alarm. Would
Yeah.
you be so good as to share those with the other members of the board?
Well, I can give you the citations. These cases are, I'm happy to give you the citations. And at that last meeting, the lawyer, there was a lawyer representing the applicant, and he wrote a brief. So, I think the best thing is just to share his brief, and the brief has citations of a lot of cases. But
that would be great. That would be great.
And I exhaustively read, almost all of these cases, and it took me weeks. So it's not, but there are a few that are just recent cases, and they're very alarming. They're very alarming to look at a bylaw that has real clear language about side setbacks, and clearly the board was within its right to say you violated the side setbacks, and you did it by 1.5 feet on each side. And it was clear that the zoning board members or the planning board members, I forgot which was which, but the board was following their bylaws. Supreme Court said it's arbitrary and capricious. One was a case from many decades ago, but the other one was more recent. So yeah, we'll give you the brief. How about Jeff, you have a copy of that brief, right? Maybe you can just share it.
I have those cases. I reviewed them and picked them.
Why don't you just give the brief?
Didn't necessarily agree with the lawyer's conclusion, but
I understand.
So in terms of process,
I did.
just in terms of process, I mean, getting back to Herb, your question, if we go on the site visit and we look at stuff, I think what we would then do is come back and have a conversation about substance. What happens, at least since I've been on the planning board, so every year there's some amendment or new bylaws. So whether it's a new thing like marijuana or amending solar or signs or open space or whatever, we assign it internally. Someone takes the lead in writing it, a draft, brings it to a planning board meeting. We discuss it. We tweak the substance, and it goes back a couple of iterations, but it comes out the other end in time for town meeting. We have to have we share it with the select board, and then we have a hearing, and then it goes to town meeting. So there's a process. It's not, that's well worn and well established for how, whether we were just clarifying language or we're making a substantive change, it would still go through the same process. But it seems like, if we were going to do this, it all starts with having a site visit, then having a conversation about the substance, if that's what we want to do.
Yep.
Yeah, that was our idea.
I think a site visit would be instructive. The problem arises when the zoning board gets into a special permit situation. It's not so much determining what can be done by right and what needs a special permit. That's fairly cut and dried. You look at the proposal, you look at the illustrations, the language, and you could, we or the building inspector, actually, the building inspector is supposed to make this determination, issue a building permit, or tell them they can't have a building permit, they got to come to the ZBA for a special permit. And there's some particular language that we have to follow in evaluating whether to issue a special permit or not. It mimics state law. And if I could share my screen, I have a little document to show you guys, which will show you what the language looks like.
Isn't the language in the zoning bylaws, Jeff, C? Isn't that it, right? C?
Yeah.
6.1-3C, isn't that the language in the statute?
Well, somebody let me share the document and we'll see what it is.
Okay, go ahead.
Can
Hold
I?
on.
All right.
Sure.
Are you able
I
to?
don't know
Not yet.
Who's hosting the meeting?
who's in charge of it.
Hold on.
Nathan,
I'm
can you
gonna
share
make Jeff a co-host.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yeah,
Okay. So there are two parts to this. The first part is the state law, Chapter 48, the Zoning Act, Section 6, Paragraph 1. This describes the process of making a finding in the case of extending, altering pre-existing non-conforming structures. So the finding needs to be that it's not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. So this is what the state law tells us we need to do in the case of these things that get put in the special permit category down at the lake. Now, here's what our bylaw says, 6.1-3C. And it virtually mimics this state language here. Provided the board finds not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. It's almost the same thing. And it should be, because we're following state law. But this is what hangs us up. This, at least it did in this one case that is more recent. What were the changes more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure? One member of the ZBA could not make that finding. The other two could. And that's where we couldn't agree. Now, maybe we need to make some changes to this language to put in some more factors for us to consider or something. But this is what hangs us up here, just for your information.
but Chuck, can I ask Chuck a question? Are you saying, what you were saying before is that the Supreme Court of Massachusetts is calling into question this kind of state statute?
No, they have criticized the statute, though. They have criticized portions of the state statute, and they did it exhaustively in that recent case. Once again, we're visiting the same questions of Chapter 48, and they focused in, and we've been doing this ad nauseum. I think, and they're certainly doing that, and they're certainly critical of it. There's no question, and there's commentators that are critical of it as well. But but I think that the language in some of these recent cases is pretty clear where they're going, and they're starting to talk about the Constitution. This language, this entire statute, was enacted because rather than having constitutional litigation, the idea was that you'd draft a state statute. This is it, Chapter 48. You draft a state statute, and that would allow cities and towns and zoning boards and planning boards and land use boards to hopefully follow the statute that's hopefully constitutional. And it has been generally declared as constitutional. But there are times where they think that the application, even though this statute is clearly constitutional on its face, and I think that the zoning bylaws are clearly constitutional on its face. When I say on its face, I mean, you look at it, you read it, it's constitutional. But it's possible to be unconstitutional as applied. And that's what really they're talking about. They're going to these lines and saying, look, the statute was enacted for a reason. Massachusetts Constitution was enacted for a reason. The United States Constitution was enacted for a reason. And if the bylaws or a state statute infringe, we're going to declare them unconstitutional. You know, it's kind when they say it's arbitrary and capricious. That's kinder to say it.
But this is written just like every other law, which is they're intentionally vague. It's like saying reasonable and
No, I don't think that's true. I think that's
well, you can't define detrimental and you can't define neighborhood. So is a neighborhood one abutter or multiple abutters? And is detrimental on the scale? That's how policy gets written. It's normal.
Exactly. And I think that's why we were talking about maybe there are different neighborhoods. I mean, that someone suggested that there are different neighborhoods in the lake. I mean,
but I would say,
I don't know how I feel about that.
Right. But like I would say with the neighborhood, I mean, just as an example, if I were in your guys' situation, if an abutter said they're blocking my view, I've been here for 25 years and now I can't see it, is an abutter equivalent to a neighborhood, or does it have to be three abutters, or does it have to, you know, like that's the question.
It could be. But what if one abutter says that's blocking my view, and that abutter has a full view of the beach because his land is right in front of a beach, but if he looks to the far left, 10% of his view is obstructed. Is that a substantial detriment that he gets 10% blocked? Where do you draw the line?
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, but I don't know what it has to be applied, and it's written vaguely. So, I mean, there's no way we can nail it down.
Well,
and I mean, you can't, because you can't do every situation. That's why they write these things this way.
Of course you can't. You're right. But the idea is, you know, if we're going to keep to the 28 feet, I don't know if we should or shouldn't, but let's say we're going to keep to the 28 feet on the lake, you know, and some people are going to have 10% or 20% of their view blocked because people are going up 28 feet. Do you want to give some relief or not to those people across the street or 2 streets over, maybe letting them go up higher? I mean, you know, like the rest of the town is 35 feet. Maybe you don't want to do that, but you know, maybe you should treat them all 28 feet. But is it harmful? I don't know that it's harmful to allow the 3rd street over or across the street to go up to 30 feet or 35 feet. I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know, you know, how many people are going to be blocked. I think the most of the lakefront properties, at least I'm told, and I don't even know if this is true. It's all hearsay. Most of them are built out right now, and there's only 3 or 4 or 5 more to go that are not really expanded to that extent right on the lake. I'm talking about exactly abutting the lake. I don't know, you know.
That would be something to note on the field trip.
Yeah, exactly. But so you're right, Michael. You can't. I mean, you can't write laws to cover every situation. But and I'm not criticizing. I mean, look at the zoning board has applied this statute, you know, many times in my 26 years without controversy. We were all in agreement almost always, unanimously. This time we weren't, and that's all. Just this one time we weren't, and it's, you know, I mean, it happens once in a while, you know. As you know, the Supreme Court disagrees with each other. Appeals court judges disagree with each other. I mean, you know, it's just how you're looking at it. You know, what's substantially more detrimental? I mean, some argue that if it's a dilapidated house and it's a house that's on the verge of being condemned, and if it's a falling apart house, and someone comes in and buys the house and then wants to improve it and make it look like a, you know, let's say it's a cluttered house and there's debris and junk everywhere, and someone buys this house that for $150,000, and then, you know, comes in and demolishes the house, gets permits, demolishes the house, and builds something that actually a lot of people might argue, I think most would, improves the neighborhood. It's not more detrimental. How do you define the neighborhood? If one person or 2 people lose a small portion of their view, but there's other benefits in you know, how do you apply that? I'm not, I don't,
Yeah.
again,
Chuck, can I just respond? I've read a lot of these cases where the court steps in and we planners and land use regulators go, oh no, what have they done? And so we read the case, and it turns out in most instances, the planning board or zoning board or building inspector has really mucked up. That they haven't written a good decision. They haven't made findings. They've made prejudicial statements.
yeah, that's true.
They really muck these things up, and then the court is, easily overturns them. But if it's done correctly and the decisions are written airtight with good findings. I mean, the Wheelock decision was, I don't know, 14, 17 pages or something like that. It nailed everything down. When you write your decisions and you reason things out like that, the court generally does not substitute its judgment.
I agree with you. Again, it's still difficult to make a determination, sometimes, not often, for us as members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, as to what expansion, what alteration is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing. So
I think in this situation, right, we have our zoning bylaw, and it says that you need to have certain setbacks in order to have a buildable lot.
Yeah.
And then we have lawfully non-conforming lots, and that's what we're dealing with. And
That's right.
what we're doing is we're saying, if you meet this very stringent criteria, you can, fix up your house by right. You're just, you're doing renovations and you're doing it by right because you're not changing the house at all. Maybe swapping windows around. If you're gonna change the house and it's has the potential to add detriment to the neighborhood, we need people on a board to say, okay, is it significantly more detrimental to the neighborhood, right?
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
seems like, the concern you've raised about, the direction where, people are going or what have you. I mean, it really, and I think I was thinking this, and then what Jeff just said kind of confirms it for me, is that, we need to make sure that, the people on our boards that could be in a capacity as a special permit granting authority are well-versed in what the requirements of the board are, maintaining quorum, writing a good decision, just public decorum, so that you don't bump into any kind of civil rights issue in the application of a decision with respect to a zoning bylaw.
No, of
So it
course,
doesn't
of course.
as much seem that it's actually an issue with the bylaw itself. I
Well,
mean, I personally think it's important, given that the bylaw was passed in town meeting, the idea there is look, for some areas, we don't want to just let anyone do anything they want.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, absolutely.
And this is where the line was. I mean, maybe it should be changed. It is a difficult question, but at some point, I do think, you need to have discretion in there.
Absolutely, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. I'm just suggesting that it's sometimes, and this is the only time, really.
Well, you're suggesting we move the line to the point where, where we.
I don't know if we should change heights or not. I don't know. I just think that, we talked as a board, as a zoning board, to at least do a tour and at least to get input from the people who live there, and then to decide. All I know, sometimes it causes divisiveness in the community. When I say the community, I'm talking about the neighborhood where that is. And in this last situation, the last case, for the first time in my 26 years, even divisiveness on the board.
I would say when we get to the point, I mean, this can happen anyway.
Yeah.
But we should make a point when we're getting input that we include the Concom and the Board of Health, because I think,
Sure.
you know, size is a proxy for other encroachments, which is on water and septic. And the lake is a resource that needs to be thought about in that regard. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And in my practice normally is, I don't even want butters to come, I don't even want applicants to come before our board unless they've already gone through Concom and the Board of Health. I mean, we have the right to condition, and we do condition almost always any permit, any special permit on approval by the Concom and on the Board of Health. But I actually like them done before they even come to our board. In most cases, although I heard there was one filed a couple of days ago that didn't happen. So that's a concern. I haven't received the application yet, but you know, I caution people.
I have a feeling that one's going to be another one of these type of cases. But so shall I work with the chairs to and the members to come up with some kind of date, maybe in the
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right.
But
Okay. Well, I don't know. I think we should probably wrap this up, but it's been a good discussion. We got into some of the details of the bylaw and of state law and you know what the controversies are, and so I think this has been good.
okay, I agree, Jeff.
Thank you.
So say again, just what you're proposing, Jeff.
That I'll work with you and Chuck to find some. I guess I've been appointed the tour guide here.
Yeah.
To work with Deacon and Chuck and who will reach out to the members, and we can find maybe do a doodle poll. Deacon, you could do a doodle poll, right?
Probably not.
Deacon can do it.
You know, Jeff, you could probably just reach out to both boards and cut the chairs out as middlemen and just reach out to both boards at once.
But isn't everybody here now? Should we?
Yeah, we can even we can even do it now if you want.
That's what I'm saying.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, I can get a calendar right here. You know, I'd say November, sometime in November. That's what I propose.
Do you want to do it on Saturday the 6th?
I'll make sure that I'm around if that's the date that we all agree on.
What time? What time?
I won't be there, but that's okay.
Oh, well.
Well, don't you want to be there? Michael,
I would love to be there. I know I'm not going to be in town that weekend.
How about the 13th?
Oh, actually, hold on one second. Hold on. No, the 6th I can do. The 13th I can't do. I got it wrong.
The
Yeah.
6th is probably going to be better weather than the 13th, but who knows?
Yeah.
We're in New England.
Yeah.
I'm good with the 6th, I think.
At what time?
Well, it would have to be later morning for me.
I would say early afternoon for me.
About 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
12:30.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock would be good.
And
Okay.
Jeff, how long do you think we should allocate? 2 hours? What do you think?
Uh,
I mean,
I'm going to check my dates. I'll be right back.
Okay.
you know, I think that Jeff, as the tour guide, you might want to pick. I mean, I don't know if we should walk around the entire lake, but maybe 3 or 4 spots on the lake. Maybe that makes the most sense. I don't know. Whatever you think, Jeff.
You know, I could set up a bunch of chairs in the back of my truck, and y'all could sit in chairs and make like the Beverly Hillbillies, and we could go around. And
I think I'll take my own Jeep just to make sure.
Only rocking chairs only.
Does
That's
anybody,
illegal.
I'm good.
does anybody have a bus?
Well, don't forget this COVID, and we probably don't want to be, too close to each other driving around.
yeah, the truck would be open air, plein air. So why don't we just say 1 o'clock, and maybe we could meet.
The beach, town beach.
Parking lot beach.
Yeah, parking lot beach.
Perfect.
Okay, at 1 o'clock.
Is that open?
The parking lot is.
I think
Yeah,
it
okay,
is.
yeah,
Yeah, I drove by today. It's open.
okay.
Okay, parking lot beach at 1, and I'm going to allocate 2 hours. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah, it depends on, because there's really two, well, the 3 cases, Chuck, I may talk with you about some other cases that would be illustrative. The three cases I'm thinking of, one's on the west side, one's in the center, and one's on the east side. So it would involve going to all those three cases to look at
Okay.
them.
Are there any sides where we're gonna go where there are lakeside residences, but there's nothing across the street from them? Is there any, does that exist on the lake? But there's no second tier, houses across the street or houses beyond that?
There are some places on the east side that are like
East side,
that.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so 1 o'clock in the parking lot at the Lake Wyola.
Yep.
Town Beach, okay.
Now, I would note that our next, we're thinking our next meeting is on November 8th. Should I put a discussion of the site visit on that agenda?
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure, that's not a bad idea. Are you gonna have a meeting at 7 o'clock, Deacon?
That's what we usually do.
Okay. Should we just join you at 7? How do you want to do that, Deacon? I mean, I have a little bit of, without assistance, the problem is, I think that open meeting law requires that if you go 3 meetings without approving minutes, you're in violation of the open meeting law. So,
Chuck, you've joined a lot of good people who are out of compliance on that one, and no one's coming after you.
Well, some people have actually said something to me about it.
Oh,
So
I think people should provide minutes, but if you look at the different listings in town, there's
okay.
committees, there's many committees that are not, the planning
Okay.
board before the
Okay.
VLOC was non-compliant.
All right. So I won't say anything more about minutes. I'll join your meeting at 7 o'clock on the 8th of November. Okay, Deacon?
Great. And we should probably just post it, Chuck, so Herb can come and I can, so we're,
Yeah,
post it.
So you want me to post it again, just like I did this one?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if we're all together as a quorum having a substantive discussion, we have to be posted.
Okay, I'll just change the date of this one.
So
Great.
meeting to view the lake on the 6th and the joint meeting on the 8th. Okay,
Yeah, at 7 o'clock. Okay,
yeah, okay.
I'll
right.
post it right in my calendar. Okay, thank you.
No, Chuck, I grabbed the agenda you had for the ZBA meeting that was posted today, and you did have old business on the agenda.
Well, the old business was just minutes, and I just discussed it.
Okay,
And I guess we scheduled our site inspection. We did that. So the only thing left is a motion to adjourn. Do you want to make it, Nathan?
No, for the
No.
ZBA. For the
No,
ZBA
you can't
to-
do that.
Okay, then I'm gonna ask Herb, do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move to adjourn.
Okay, I'll poll the members. What say,
I'll second that.
you second it? Okay, what say you, Jeff Lacy?
Aye.
What say you, Herb Gilmore?
Aye.
And I say aye. So this meeting is adjourned at what time? At 8:37.
and the
Okay,
planning board will
All righty.
continue-
Chuck, I'll send you this. I'll send you this stuff, Chuck.
okay, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
goodbye,
okay.
everyone. Thanks for bearing with me.
thank you, Chuck.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Herb.
I'm trying to get off. I don't know if I can get off. Oh, there I am.
Deacon, are we going to circle back to the previous items at all, or?
Yes, I think, we should do I think we should do what we need to do for minutes and associate members. And I'd like to make an appeal that we end early enough so that I can catch the end of the game.
Hmm.
It's,
I just want to suggest we bring alcohol to the November 8th meeting.
it'll be virtual. You'll have to drink by yourself.
Oh, boy. Well.
So, yeah, as mentioned earlier, I don't have the minutes. I don't know, I wonder if possibly, it was a meeting that Becky had initiated And I've reached out to her, I've reached out to Grace, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they haven't got back to me with it. But once they do, I'll get that, and I'll be able to get the recording for this because I have access to it, so.
Great.
Nathan, you're doing your best. Don't stress.
Now, this is,
I am, I am stressed because it's at this point, it's getting behind and I really don't like it. And our new land use clerk already left. So it's a frustrating situation for me right now. Now, I guess I will reach out to Linda Ava Scott and just kind of confirm with her that the minutes for 10-4 will kind of include,
yeah,
will
I
be
think
taken care of.
I think we're pretty much okay there, but calling her is good.
Yeah, I'll double check with her and make sure we're good to go.
Good. So we've discussed this enough. We can move on to associate members.
Yes.
Good.
He can give us some intro or something, get us going here.
Well,
Yeah.
we put people before the select board. They were not approved. We need to start over. This is most unfortunate. I for sure think we need to have some discussion about getting the publicity going again. So we sure need to get this moving.
Well, we can definitely replicate the town announce and putting it on the planning board website. That's, and then the discussion that's happened on other boards, is that lots of people use Nextdoor and some people use Cricket. And, town policy is not that we announce things on it, but if we send out a town announce, anyone on the committee can post it as an individual onto those things. So I think the committee just decides to do a town announce and post it, and then, whoever wants to sort of put it onto those two boards can.
We have some text that's already prepared from the last time.
Yeah. Last time I sent out the town announce, after Deacon approved it. So all we have to do is change the dates, unless we want to make it like more exciting for more people to get eyeballs on. But, I think I think the big thing is to figure out when we want to have the deadline, and maybe send out a reminder, but do we want to give people a month this time, or I think that's what we gave them last time. I can't remember how much time we gave them last time.
And Michael, how do you propose to make it sound more exciting?
I'm going to say that they can participate in conversations like we just did, where we talked about the existential realities of statutes.
Find out whether you as an associate board member can be sued personally or not.
Exactly. There you go. That'll bring them all in.
Yes, and
Works for me.
maybe,
Come join our board and be sued.
Yeah.
And knowing that they might be sued personally will be a really attractive, recruitment tool.
we've all been sued personally before, every one of us, except for Nathan, I guess.
I haven't.
Yeah.
You haven't, that's right.
Yeah,
But the rest of us have been sued.
And we can
Wow.
talk about our exotic travels because we're going on a site visit.
Yeah.
But
Should we address kind of what the issue was? Which was, basically the applicants had taken a public position on a proposed, not even a proposed project, but, a project that's being talked about.
I personally don't want to discuss that. We have our different views. We took a different position. And what's the point of discussing it?
Well, not discussing it now. As far as putting the word out and trying to attract associate members, would that be something that we would want to include?
I don't think you can. I mean, I think that's part of the issue is that people are allowed to have their opinions
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
they come forward. It's just that some people decided that was disqualifying, other people did not, but it doesn't make anybody ineligible for coming forward.
I do
That's
think
true.
that it might be good to have something in the announcement about the Attorney General's opinion of our bylaw,
Oh, but the new part,
of the associate member bylaw, because it certainly affects what the responsibilities of the associate members would be.
right? I do, just as a placeholder, I do want to get some feedback from Jeff on what he's learned, but let's do that after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Deacon, why don't I write something and anew and send it to you that sort of comes
Yeah.
off of that? But if people have other ideas about how to sort of get people to pay attention more, get more enthused,
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any thoughts now?
I would hope to get at least one associate member from the lake area. I mean, look at what we just talked about for an hour. Zoning board is like all the time at the lake. And we don't have anybody from that end of town. So maybe the Lake Wyola Association contacting the president or getting it out through the association, making an extra special effort down there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't, I think it's okay, Jeff. I'm not convinced that having geographic representation creates diversity. It's, it seems like there's, I mean, just to point out, I mean, Linda's the only woman on the board, and we're all white. There's other ways of sort of looking at different, and so I think we should definitely include like Wyola, but I think having it be as broad and really trying to encourage people to come forward who might not think, and none, well, Nathan's,
Linda's also the only person on the board that's in the town center district.
right, yeah. And you're the youngest person, Nathan.
Right.
You
That
got great.
made me a diversity hire when I was appointed.
So we've got, the south end of town is well represented.
That's, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also the only member without facial hair too. So.
Excuse me, excuse me.
Oh,
Yeah.
looks like Robert
Didn't you have-
shaved.
Didn't you have some last week? Didn't you have some?
It's gone. It's gone.
Times have changed.
Yeah, last week Bob looked like Steve.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it with the winter coming, Robert. It's the wrong time of year.
Deacon, I just want to point out that Don Wakaluk is on the call and he has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the hand.
You got to unmute yourself though. There you go.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. So what I was thinking here is that I'm not too worried about you guys getting members. I think you could probably have a pretty easy time of it. If you approach the right people in town, you'd probably get a lot of volunteers, but your volunteers are getting scared off, just kind of the same way that happened with the Concom. People are concerned about what's going on with the precedents being set by the select board. And I know you don't want to talk about that, so I won't get into the politics of it, but it's a precedent nonetheless. Maybe what you could do is do a general outreach through, yeah, sure, some of the online stuff. Next door Shutesbury certainly reaches everybody. But I noticed the makeup of the board doesn't seem to have any renters. I noticed you guys are landowners, and you're not terribly poor, none of you, neither am I. I just think that we're a little underrepresented as a town when we're talking about the people that make up about 50% of our population. Just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we should all continue our individual efforts too. I mean, John Thompson stopped by a chat today, and I hit him up for both ZBA and planning board as a potential. I mean, John was the chair when I got on the board 25 years ago. He's an assistant building commissioner in Amherst. has been on the ZBA, I think he was ZBA chair, planning board chair. Very knowledgeable. Somebody like that. If
Yeah, but
they were
there's a
with-
reason, there's a reason he probably wouldn't want to come back onto either the ZBA or the planning board because he's had that experience.
Well, I told him I wouldn't plow him anymore if he didn't consider it.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
does-
I mean, that would be a person that, you know, he's a white male. He kind of looks like the rest of us, most of us, but he's so eminently qualified and would be a great board member. I think Linda served with him and Steve has and Deacon. Wonderful person if we could talk him into coming back on either board.
Well, I've failed to convince him to do several things in the last few years.
Yeah.
The one thing it reminds me of, Jeff, I just want to point out, and I respect Robert doesn't want to sort of talk about the last meeting, but I do think it was out of line when Melissa asked about who was recruiting who, or did they get recruited? Because if we're all saying to each other, we want to reach out and make individual asks, that shouldn't disqualify anybody by who's doing the asking. And I think that was implied. And I thought that was wrong.
I agree, Michael, but you know, what's gained by in that
Yeah.
select board?
No,
Yeah,
I'm only saying going forward, like, because I think it does make sense for us to do word of mouth, but
Right.
amongst us to say that's a legitimate outreach strategy. It's
No, I
not-
agree. I agree.
Yeah. I know you had something to say, Jeff.
No, for once I don't.
Oh,
Or I'll think of something if you give me a minute, but
okay. I'm sorry.
So today's the 18th, right? So if we can do our internal stuff and get it out in like the next week, we want to do it like, have people get back to us by December 1st. Is that too late? You know, we're not going to do much business except hopefully have a December meeting, I'm assuming.
You know, could you do something like, you know, there will be a meeting on November, is it the 8th, November 8th? And, you know, if you get before, you know, if you reach out to the board before then, you know, we can have a discussion then. If not, then the next meeting will be in December.
So we can just do a rolling thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I mean, the point would be just, you know, if somebody, or I don't know, we could also just, if somebody expresses interest, you know, whether it's you know, someone that, you know, we tap on the shoulder, or if someone just reaches out right away, we can just say, hey, come to the meeting on the 8th. And then, you know, go from there. Or, you know, I don't know if you think we should mention in the town announcement. Just an
Well,
idea.
yeah, I mean, we could just say application, you know, written statements are, you know, being accepted on a rolling basis, and just know that we might have conversations, a couple of meetings in a row if we're lucky, but first come, first serve kind of. I mean, the challenge, I think, Nathan, is there's a benefit to that. The downside is that you don't get comparative discussions. So if we were so lucky to have more than 2 people, you'd want to, you know, make a decision.
Yeah.
So I can go either way personally.
I mean, one thing I'd say is that our experience is so far is that it's not that easy to find people to volunteer. I mean, we haven't been overwhelmed.
That's a townwide problem, or even a statewide national problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that if we got even one candidate, that'd be better than none. And holding out for 2 might be. Might be too big a reach.
If we have one ready to go, let's just
Yeah, that.
get them to the select board and get it done. And
Yeah, that's what
keep
I
looking for, keep looking for another one.
because I think speed is a good thing here.
So we'll do rolling, it sounds like.
I mean,
Okay.
okay. So
So Deacon, while I have you, just so I don't screw up again, what email do you want me to use?
For responses?
Yes.
Well, planning, I think.
Okay. Okay, that sounds fine. I just wanted to clarify since we had that problem last time with the posting. Great.
That way everybody will get to see it.
Exactly. So before we adjourn, can I just ask Jeff if he learned anything from Bob Ritchie and from Donna?
Yeah, I had conversations with both. I won't get into the arcana of a home rule state versus a Dillon rule state, but Bob and Donna both feel that that was off, that opinion was off. I mean, things like site plan review aren't even covered in statute. They're things that we do in Shutesbury by home rule. So at the very least, you know, they were out of line in saying we couldn't have alternates for site plan review. And anyway, I explained Bob's position to Donna relative to the home rule amendment and everything else today. And Donna says she largely concurs. And she feels that that perhaps she, Bob, and I could have a conversation together, get our argument unified, and then call Margaret Hurley, the assistant AG, and make our case. One thing Bob told me was, because he used to have that job, was that there is no appeal mechanism built in. It's not, the Attorney General would have no way of appealing or reversing what they put out there. It's kind of final. The way to do it would simply be to just re-adopt it and submit it again.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
That's stupid.
I know. But you just re-adopt the same exact thing, and or maybe based on the conversation with the Attorney General and a little bit of advice that we could get out of her, with some slight edits that they would approve, and then just run that through town meeting and send it to them again with a little sticky note saying, "Remember our conversation that we had."
Well, I like that idea. Having drafted it, I thought it was legal. It seems like if we're in support of that, we should vote to, proceed, and probably give a heads up to the select board that we're doing it. So do you think, Jeff, just personally, if I participated in that meeting, that if you had it, that would be overload, or you think that would be appropriate?
No, that'd be fine, especially since you authored it.
Okay. That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that since the planning board questions the Attorney General's decision, that we ask Jeff to proceed with meetings and discussions with Donna McNichol and Bob Ritchie about talking to the AG.
So, Michael, do you want to participate in the
I do,
Bob
yeah.
Ritchie, Donna McNichol meeting and or the meeting with the AG?
I can do both.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
never met Bob, so it's fun to see who he is.
He's a wonderful man.
So do we have a proper motion at this point?
That was my proper motion.
Second,
But it's been modified since, I think, hasn't it?
I just he added me.
Okay.
Yeah.
so,
So, Robert,
The Attorney General's decision again was what?
The Attorney General basically said that because statute only talks about special permits, that our bylaw that would allow associate members to participate in activities that were not only special permits, but site plan reviews and hearings for, say, bylaw amendments, that everything that wasn't a special permit was not allowed. So they scratched that and they only preserved the special permit ability. And we're saying that we believe that's not accurate.
Thank you.
Or we'd like it to be different.
No, we know.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Jeff,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Linda. Linda?
She says aye.
I
Even
said,
though,
"Brother, let's move." Robert,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay.
Good.
Well,
Good.
okay.
Move to adjourn?
Second,
Any discussion?
let's hope not.
Okay. I'll call the roll backwards this time. Robert,
aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Jeff.
I just thought of what I was gonna say before. Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. All
All right,
right.
so Michael moved and who seconded?
I did.
Robert.
Okay,
Robert.
thank you.
Nathan, thank you for doing this.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Nathan.
Thank you very much.
Deacon, go get us a clerk.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Deacon, stop chasing them away and find one.
Oh, God, it's awful. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, workers have too much power now.
Yeah.
At will employment? Good goodness.
Yeah, this is difficult. I mean, people are.
Wait a
turning
minute,
them
this
down.
is the socialist paradise we've all been dreaming about for years. We
Yeah,
finally have it.
Right.
Even the
No.
socialists don't want to do clerking. See ya.
Yeah. All right.
thank you. Thank you all.
Have a good night,
All
everyone.
right, good night, all.